Oh. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Narayana. Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. Living in the present. Easy or hard? Very easy to say, very hard to practice. Yet, living in the present, we accrue all virtues. If you pause and think about all the virtues that we would be living if we lived in the present, what would they be? We would be accepting, we would be spontaneous, we would be grateful, we would be focused. All of these virtues. We've forgotten how to live in the present, though. Those who are more mind-oriented, it's regrets of the past. Those who are more intellect-oriented, it's anxieties of the future. We have forgotten how to live in the present, and just saying it is not enough. We need to be guided back to living in the present. And that can only be done when the person sharing living in the present is living in the present. And how fortunate we are that the person telling us to do this is Sri Ramana, the embodiment of all virtues, one who is infinite, and verse by verse guiding us to remember that our nature is virtuous, that our nature is a divine presence. What does japa do for our thoughts? Japa has an impact in 3 ways, 3 R's that you've heard of before. What are the 3 R's of japa? Show me with your hands. You could just go like this, right? You're bound to be right. Japa raises the quality of your thoughts, which then leads to a reduction in the quantity of thoughts, and finally a redirection in the flow of thoughts. Yes? Raise, reduce, redirect. If you think of what we've studied in Upadesha Sara so far, each portion is doing the same. The portion on Karma Yoga essentially is saying, live selflessly. So raise the quality of your thoughts. That was shlokas 1 through 3. Then the portion on Bhakti Yoga, which was 4 through 9, with this raising in the quality, there's a reducing in the quantity, where our thoughts, our focus becomes Ishvara, becomes God. And with the success or fulfillment of that, there's a redirection in the flow of thoughts. That was in verse 10, where one feels swastha, where one's thoughts have now found experience. The thought of I am infinite is now being experienced as I am infinite. So what we've studied so far in these 3 portions is the same impact, the same effect as japa. Our Sanatana Dharma, our scriptures, are most beautiful in this way, that there's an elaborate way to look at a subject, there's a simple way to look at a subject. And some time has passed since we've visited Upadesha Sara. When we remember how much we've benefited from our religion, from our practices, we stay strong then. When we forget the benefit, we have this propensity to give in to weakness. You have to remember how strong you are when you don't sleep in, how strong you feel when you don't react. To remember how wonderful we feel when we're dedicated in our day. Remember the benefit. This helps us to be strong. This is how we internalize these teachings. Upadesha Sara's advice. But this should become instruction for ourselves. Okay? We now go into a new portion. And I have to give you some background before we can study this. Okay. The word yoga. Yoga means self-development. Yoga means to unite. And there's lots of prefixes to yoga. Right now I've mentioned karma yoga, bhakti yoga. In this portion of Upadesha Sara, the word yoga is described in many ways, and I'm going to give you a background to all of this. Okay. Dhyana yoga. Tell me, where have you heard or seen the word dhyana yoga before? Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita is dhyana yoga. This dhyana yoga, it's mentioned here, but for us, dhyana yoga is for an advanced seeker. For someone who has lived a life of purification and preparation, they're only engaged in the process now. They've gone through chapters 1 through 5. They're not engaged in any sort of relaxation. They're engaged in a practice for enlightenment. So whenever you come across this word dhyana yoga, go take your mind to Bhagavad Gita. Now this portion is sometimes called Patanjali Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga or Raja Yoga. 3. This portion we're studying, it's sometimes known as Dhyana Yoga also, but I told you, when you think of Dhyana Yoga, you have to go back to Bhagavad Gita. Okay, we're not here to just become professors of this subject. How do I internalize this? So Patanjali Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Raja Yoga. Now what is the teachings of this yoga? Because it's not highlighted fully in this portion. Rishi Patanjali has shared in the Yoga Sutras, which is a fundamental text. Many of us have studied this together. that there's 8 facets of yoga, and they begin with yamas and niyamas, which are the don'ts and the do's that we have to follow. When we studied this, Swami Tejomayananda described the yamas and niyamas as the great values for purification. Great values for purification. It brings control into our lives. When my life is really out of control, when I start to put on the brakes, the don'ts, I start to press the accelerator in the right direction in the right time, the do's, I start to bring control. Okay, just general control, where I don't feel so overwhelmed. The yamas and niyamas can also be interpreted as bahi sadhana, outer disciplines. So 1 and 2, which leads to the third part, which is asana. Asana is for control of body. Number 4, pranayama, which is control of breath. Number 5 is pratyahara. I'm going through the 8 rungs of Patanjali Ashtanga Raja Yoga. Number 5 is pratyahara, which is control of mind. Got it so far? 1 and 2 is just control of living. Then you start to focus in on control of body, breath, mind. Then 6 and 7 is known as dharana and dhyana. This is, I don't want to call it control of intellect anymore. This is now dhyana yoga. Remember, I just mentioned that. I'm going from subtlest to less subtle. Dharana and dhyana is the process of contemplation. It is where you're applying that intellect, that redirection of the flow of thoughts. And the fulfillment of that is samadhi. Samadhi is the control of the ego. It's where the ego is now merged with the spirit. Okay? So Patanjali Ashtanga Raja Yoga. Now I'll give you one more rung to this yoga pyramid. It's called Hatha Yoga or Kriya Yoga. And Hatha Yoga and Kriya Yoga, their focus is primarily, if not only, on asana and pranayama. Naturally, there's an emphasis on yamas and niyamas, asana, pranayama, and that's it. But that's why with Hatha Yoga and Kriya Yoga, I feel an oversimplification of the Ashtanga Yoga. And simplification is important, but oversimplification, then you confuse the means and ends. Okay? So with this background, I'm going to say it one more time. Dhyana Yoga is contemplation, Bhagavad Gita. Simplifying this more or making this more accessible is what we're about to study, Ashtanga Yoga. How do I get to that top rung? Well, there's other rungs to get there. Control of living, body, breath, mind, intellect, ego. And an oversimplification of that is this Hatha and Kriya Yoga, which is about just control of body and breath. So it's very relaxation oriented, not contemplation oriented. Okay, so now, what does Sri Ramana teach us? I'm on Shloka 11. Vayurodanat liyate manaha. Vayurodanat liyate manaha. Jala pakshivat rodha sadhanam. Jala pakshivat Rodha sadhanam. Vayu rodhanat. Vayu means air, like Vayu Putra. That is Hanumanji. But there's more to just air. Vayu here means the pranas. How many pranas do we have? 5 pranas, which we've studied already. Rodhanat means to control, to restrain, to ride over the breath. What happens when one does this? Liyate manaha. Liyate, you should think of like laya. That calmness is felt. The mind is subdued. So through pranayama, which is the control of the breath, there is some control of the mind. And I'll elaborate on this. In pranayama, there's 3 phases. Inhalation is called puraka, where you fill the lungs. Then holding that is called kumbhaka. Kumbhaka is like a pot. A pot holds stuff. It holds air. And exhalation is called rechaka, to let go. Now in pranayama, there's an emphasis on deep breathing, on careful breathing. So you have to breathe in the ratio of, your breathing in is a unit of 1. 4 times the length of you breathing in is you should be holding your breath. And breathing out should be 2 units. So 1, 4, 2. 1, 4, 2. 1, 4, 2. So following this discipline, one becomes more careful of their breath. So that's what pranayama is. And when you do that, and I'll share more about this in the next line, but before I get to that, how many pranas do we have? How many physiological airs do we have? 5. See, whenever we think of pranayama, we only think of inhalation, of the prana, but there are people who can control all of their physiological functions, all 5. They can control their digestion. As an example, Bhagwan Vishnu and Bhima, one of the Pandavas, a common name between both of them is Vrikodara. Udara means stomach or abdomen, and Vrikaha means a wolf. That Bhagwan Vishnu and Bhima have wolf-like abdomens, meaning they have 24 packs. That is really one of the meanings of all of this. But in reference to what we're studying, it means they can digest anything. Like this Contigo water bottle, Bhima can eat it and digest this water bottle. Okay, so there are people who can control their homeostasis. They can make their body really hot. They can make their body very cold also. And don't think of Jack from Incredibles 2. I think his name is Jack, right? He doesn't control it. That just happens. But there are people who can control all of this. Okay, so where are we going with this? Jala Pakshiva. Pakshi means bird. When a bird or birds have a jala or a net put on them, what do those birds do? They stop flying. They chirp less. But as soon as that net or that cage is lifted, what happens to those birds? They start chirping a lot and they start flying away, correct? Rodha sadhanam. So, pranayama is a means of temporarily bringing calmness to the mind. I like how the translation says, it's a means of checking the mind. When you're really angry, breathe. When you're about to react, pause. That's what's being shared here. And it's because the mind is given something to do. You know, when the mind has nothing to do, the mind is so restless. It starts to destroy us. So what to do? Give the mind something to do. That is controlling the breath, counting the breath. So the mind in that phase has something to do, but as soon as you stop controlling or counting the breath, what happens? It goes back into its restlessness. Understand that Sri Ramana's trying to emphasize to us there is a stark difference between the means and ends, between relaxation and contemplation. So here, we shouldn't get lost in thinking that the absence of pain, that is dukkha nivritti, is the same as the presence of joy, which is our nature. This is elaborated more in the next verse. Let's chant verse 11 together, now that we know what some of these words mean. Then we'll kick into 12. Together. Vayurodhanat liyate manaha jala pakshivat rodha sadhanam. Please repeat. Chittavayavash chitkriya-yutaha. Chittavayavash chitkriya-yutaha. Shakayordvayi shakti-mulaka. Shakayordvayi shakti-mulaka. Okay. Now, a whole new subject is introduced here, which more background is needed to appreciate this, okay? So in this verse, now what comes up is Kundalini. Fascinating, no? How many of you want to know more about Kundalini? None of you. Wow. Such earnest seekers, or you didn't hear what I said, or you didn't understand the word that I said. Kundalini means, the definition of this word is circular. So Kundalini means circular. In imagery, a snake comes to mind. A snake, I don't know if all snakes are like this, but they're coiled. And they sit on top of that coil. The precious part of that snake is on the top. The least precious part is on the bottom. So it means circular, it means coiled. Kundalini also means jalebi. So, you know, that's what jalebi is, right? They keep making those circles and it's coiled. To give you a reference of what all this means. There's a group of thinkers who follow energy centers. They're called Shaktas. Okay? Just hear me out. You don't need to know all of this. This will not be on your next test. So I'm already telling you there will be another test, but this won't be on your next test. If we didn't do so well on the first test, there's no way I'm going to bring this up on the second test. So, one of the names of Mother Durga is Kundalini. One of the names of Mother Durga is Shakti. Yes? Those people who follow Shakti are called Shaktas. Shaktas. Like people who follow Vishnu are Vaishnavas. So now, there is an element, there's a group of thinkers within the path of Shakti that believe that there's energy centers in our body. From really our tailbone, it rides through our spine. And so the idea is that this circular notion, like our spine, has these layers, or a snake that's coiled up. As one evolves, it's like those energy centers are opened up. It's like that snake is rising then. And many people describe this like the feeling of electricity, like energy that's running through your body. Now, for us, we follow the Vedanta Marga. We, as in Sri Ramana and all of the students of Sri Ramana, which is us. For so many months we've been studying this. Sri Ramana describes not Kundalini or energy centers, but shares, as one evolves, they tune into their potential more. So now think, as you tune into Sat Chit Ananda, or existence, awareness, joy more, what will happen to you? As you tune into existence more, won't you be more gentle with people, with animals? Won't you lose your phone less and your keys less? As you tune into awareness more, won't you remember people's names more? Remember these shlokas more? As you tune into Ananda, when someone asks, why are you smiling? That's who I am. I'm happiness. That's the simplest. That is the most accurate way to understand power. Tuning into our potential. So now with this background, we study this shloka. Chitta Vayavaha. Chitta here means mind. Vayavaha is the airs, the physiological functions. The chitta, that is the mind, has the power of chitta, which is also known as jnana shakti. And the vayus, they're endowed, yutaha, they're of the nature of kriya, energizing. Okay, so there's a knowing power and a energizing power. There's one more power that's not mentioned here, and that is Icha Shakti. So the three Shaktis are Icha Shakti, which is associated with your intellect, your willpower, your ideals. This then gets expressed through your mind as Jnana Shakti. The mind knows it's looking at a camera. The mind knows what it's speaking. And this gets expressed as Kriya Shakti, where the breath makes that thought happen. It's energizing, it's activating. Here Sri Ramana is trying to point out that the mind and breath are different. The breath doesn't know. The mind does. The mind doesn't energize. The breath does. Okay, this is what's being shared here. The implication of Icha, Jnana, Kriya Shakti, this only applies to creation. All of creation is inherent to creation is this Icha, Jnana, Kriya Shakti. Okay? Fine. So what else are we supposed to know about this? Shaka yordvai Shakti Mulaka. These are two branches. Shaka means branches. Two branches. Shakti Mulaka, two branches of the same base power, the same base energy, which I just mentioned to you. The creator is this base energy that gets expressed through creation. This is just another way of describing creation. Okay? And Sri Ramana's implication of this, okay? Now, what is the implied meaning of all of this? Is don't get lost. The implied meaning is don't get lost. Not in this scripture, but in another scripture. Sri Ramana says what we should engage in is vikshana. Vikshana means to be an observer of the breath. Don't engage in control of the breath, pranayama. He's saying engage in vikshana of the breath. Be a sakshi, be an observer, because when we do this, we don't get lost in creation. We start to tune into deeper than creation is the creator, and deeper than the creator is consciousness. Consciousness. So this is shared in the 12th verse. Let's chant together now that you are pretending to know what some of these words mean. Together. Chittavayavash chit kriya yutaha shakayordvayi shakti mulaka. I had mentioned to you that we're going to move fast through verses 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Sri Ramana is trying to guide seekers to understand the difference between the means and ends. And if you're disinterested in these two verses and the forthcoming ones, good. That shows that you're tuned into the ends, and this is all the whipped cream on your Starbucks Frappuccino. It's good, the first sip of that whipped cream is good, but eventually you think, why did I even ask for that whipped cream, correct? It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You just want the drink. So that's what we're going through right now. I don't know if Sri Ramana would be happy or sad based on the analogy that I just used to understand what we're studying. Oh.